And I would like to go, please, Dr. Monzur-E-Elahi, Associate Professor, National University, Dhaka, Bangladesh. You are requested to deliver your speech.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa ashabihi wa mawala. Honorable Chair of the session, Dr. Abu Omar Farooq Ahmed. Honorable Chief Guest, Professor Dr. Habib Ahmed. Honorable Keynote Speaker, Professor Dr. M. Kabir Hassan. Respected audience, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah, we have already listened to a very good keynote paper and also a valuable discussion from our respected discussants. My topic of discussion now, the COVID-19 response through Maqasid al-Sharia, the role of Islamic banks in Bangladesh. I'll try to cover it, inshallah, by 10 minutes if I'll be given this time, inshallah. The world is facing a global pandemic because of coronavirus disease, COVID-19, this time by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The impact of it at global level is very severe, with 6,702,699 confirmed cases and 393,212 confirmed deaths at 215 countries till yesterday, according to Worldometer. Preservation of life is one of the fundamental objectives of Islam and its Sharia law. It is a goal of everything related to Islam. As the COVID-19 pandemic is primarily an earthly problem, so the efforts for saving, preserving, and promoting the sacredness of human life must spread across all life sectors. Doing so during the COVID-19 pandemic should merely be part of a bigger and perennial struggle. That means that the intensity and scale of the strategies intended to combat COVID-19 should be replicated in other critical life segments as well. We should aim to save and preserve in different ways the human life. Here, from this perspective, Maqasid al-Sharia paradigm can be used as potential response to a COVID-19 pandemic crisis. In general, Muslim jurists agreed that the greatest Maqasid al-Sharia is to serve the public interests of human beings and to prevent harm from them. The main objective of Sharia is governed by the principles and concepts of mercy and guidance, as mentioned in Surah Al-Anbiya, verse number 107, and in Surah Yunus, verse number 57. Thus, all aspects of human life must conform to the objectives of Sharia based on its priorities, namely essentials or al-daruriyat, complementary or al-hajiyat, and embellishment or at-tahsiniyat. Preservation of life is one of the most essential priorities in the objectives of Sharia. According to Ibn Ashur, in his book, Maqasid al-Sharia al-Islamiyya, the objectives of Sharia invariably includes preserving the social order of the community and ensuring its healthy progress by promoting the well-being and virtue of the human being. The most important objectives of Sharia is to establish justice, eliminate prejudice, and alleviate hardship. For Al-Ghazali, the importance of preservation of the aims of the Sharia is the fundamental meaning of maslaha. For that reason, according to Imam Shatibi, maslaha is a principle which concerns the subsistence of human life, the completion of man's livelihood, and the acquisition of what his emotional and intellectual qualities require of him, as an absolute sense, including the administration of justice and worship. So it can be said confidently that solving the COVID-19 crisis are in tandem with the objectives of Sharia and principle of maslaha. In times of harsh conditions brought by COVID-19, policy aids, charity funds can play a vital role, and for some, a lifetime a lifeline in preserving one's livelihood. The situation may demand the Sharia rules of necessity, which have an inbuilt universality that prevents any division based on race, color, and creed. Therefore, as one of the five essentials of Sharia, the preservation of life, regardless whether they are Muslims or non-Muslims, should remain one of the highest priorities of policymakers, institutions, and society as whole. Now, I want to highlight some challenges of Islamic banks, and then we'll try to recommend some roles for Islamic banks in Bangladesh in this era. The COVID-19 pandemic and economic lockdowns have severely hurt global economic activity. Small and medium-sized enterprises are particularly vulnerable, and many of them are already on the verge of collapse. In these circumstances, Islamic banking system faces some special challenges, particularly in Bangladesh. Islamic banks are now in front of some new problems in addition to some former challenges. We can conclude them in below. I concluded in four challenges. Number one, while the COVID-19 crisis has created immense human suffering, a diverse and inclusive set of actions should be taken to overcome the present situation. In fact, COVID-19 establishes a new platform for evaluating how Islamic banking responds to economic chaos. Number two, due to COVID-19 crisis, Bangladesh government declared a stimulus package and published a unique circular, that means only one circular, for the conventional banks as well as for Islamic banks under refinance scheme with a low interest or profit. Observing this circular, it is clear that the instructions of this package should be different for Islamic banks to be feasible for Islamic banking system. So in this crisis moment, using this package would not be in accordance with Islamic Sharia law. Number three, like other conventional banks, Islamic banks are also supposed to give the chance for rescheduling to big clients who defaulted due to present crisis of COVID-19 pandemic. Whereas conventional system of rescheduling is not compliant with Islamic Sharia, in fact, they're lacking of a complete Sharia-based act from our central bank for the Islamic banks in Bangladesh, which causes from time to time inconsistency of Sharia compliance in some areas of Islamic banking service. Number four, all Islamic banks consist of an independent Sharia board intended to oversee and verify the conformity of the bank's behaviors with their interpretation of Sharia law. The differences in interpretation and extension differences in banking policy lead to contradictory solution among Sharia boards. The lack of an overarching body in Islamic banking sector in Bangladesh and the resulting ambiguity of a correct operation of the Islamic bank impedes the success of the system in terms of both its reach and prolonged adherence to the bank's fundamental principles. Now, what can be the role of Islamic banks in Bangladesh in COVID-19 era? Under these dire circumstances, there is an urgent need to explore all possible options to mitigate the impact of the outbreak and reboot economies post-COVID-19. Islamic banks, along with Islamic Finance, through its inherent orientation towards supporting the real sector, will have a key role to play. Various Islamic finance instruments can be used to support the recovery efforts with a particular focus on those with significant or growing Islamic financial sectors. The intermediate priorities identified in the response include economic aids and supports, health system support, inclusive and integrated crisis management, and response and strengthening investment policy with easy and feasible terms and conditions. Islamic banks of Bangladesh can be a part of the COVID-19 response through a range of financing instruments well suited for each stage. The financing of equipment vehicles, and other sources of livelihood and trade finance are key mechanisms by which Islamic banks and financial institutions can support recovery. Aligning their financing activities with the SDGs is a significant opportunity for Islamic banks. In 2018, the Al Baraka Banking Group launched a collaboration with UNDP that seeks to align over US $600 million of its financing portfolio with SDGs in the Middle East, Asia, Africa, and Europe. The coronavirus pandemic makes such initiatives all the more urgent, and especially in Bangladesh also. Impact investing, private investment prioritizing business with social impact can play a central role in the recovery. At last, I'll also recommend that exploring social, yes, 1 minute.
Sir. Yeah, okay, please, sir.
Okay, exploring social investments in this pandemic era can be another important role for Islamic banks and Islamic financial institutions and entrepreneurs in Bangladesh. Besides proper use of zakat and waqf tools, social sukuk can be used to overcome the health hazard and to ensure the social development in Bangladesh. COVID-19 has highlighted the need for a paradigm shift on public service and financial disparities. Islamic banks are well positioned to support the overhaul of public financial management systems and the strengthening of health, education, and food security infrastructures as they work to fulfill the objectives of Islamic Sharia to ensure the benefit for the whole humankind. Towards this end, governments and multilateral institutions should explore the potential of pandemic sukuk, a new asset that targets both conventional and Islamic investors. Jazakumullah khair. Wa sallallahu sallam ala nabiyana Muhammad. Wassalamu alaikum.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mohammad Monzur-E-Elahi, for your valuable speech, and Jazakumullahu khairan kathiran. Dear viewers, you are watching international online seminar arranged by Quest and JoraShako, and the subject of the seminar is the COVID-19 impact on Islamic banks in Bangladesh, challenge and the way forward. I would like to go to UK to our chief guest, Professor Dr. Habib Ahmed, Sharjah Chair in Islamic Law and Finance, Business School, Durham University. I would like to request to guest Professor Dr. Habib Ahmed to deliver his valuable speech. Please, sir.
Thank you very much. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. First of all, I want to start by thanking the organizers for inviting me to this international seminar on an important topic of dealing with the challenges that Islamic banks face and charting out the appropriate responses. As you see, there are two themes to the topic. First, identifying the challenges, and then talking about how to move forward more in a futuristic way. Now, different speakers, including Professor Atar Belal and Professor Kabir Hassan, and also all the discussants, they have actually covered various issues related to both challenges and way forward. My 10-minute talk will focus on mainly on the way forward in terms of Islamic finance, Islamic banking in the post-COVID area. Now, while the COVID-19 lockdown has created economic and social disruptions, it also gives everyone the opportunity to pause and think how to create a new and better future. Recognizing that the origins of the pandemic lie in human greed and the business models which focus on unabated profits maximization, and also, as was mentioned, on the assault on the environment and nature, which has actually created severe income and wealth inequalities. So the lockdown has now shown that this current model actually is not sustainable and has enormous risks and costs. The pandemic gives everyone an opportunity to change course towards a new model of sustainable development that balances the needs of all humans on the one hand and between humans and nature on the other. Now, in theory, the values and principles of Islamic finance, as was mentioned by different speakers, it provides a framework that can contribute to solving some of the challenges in the COVID-19 era. The overall notion of Maqasid al-Sharia, which was just mentioned, gives Islamic finance social orientation, and the Islamic contractual principles ensures justice, and they encourage risk-sharing financing that are linked to the real economy. Although Islamic finance has grown significantly globally, the practice has been criticized for not using business models, or for using actually business models and products that are very similar to the conventional banking sector. The industry is censored for focusing on increasing shareholders' returns by mainly using debt-based products. So in light of this new reality of COVID-19, given the values and principles of Islamic finance, we can think of Islamic banking playing an important role and lead in contributing to a new model that can help contribute to an equitable and sustainable development model. This would be actually reflecting the values and principles of Islamic finance. Now, from the discussions, we can look forward and identify 4 specific areas in which Islamic banks can play a transformative role in further, in terms of meeting the challenges of COVID-19. The first is the mission. Basically, there is a need to reform the mission. The mission of the dominant banking model is to focus on increasing profits of shareholders. I think this was mentioned by Professor Atul Belal. The achieving the social and sustainable goals will require redefining corporate purpose to achieve triple bottom line by incorporating not only profit, but also people and planet. While the people component represents social dimension of Islamic banks, and this will be reflected in enhancing financial inclusion and providing financing to micro, small, medium enterprises. The planet component can be implemented by incorporating climate, environmental risks and opportunities in decision making. The second issue, which I think a lot of people talked about, not too many, but some people talked about, was related to the operational issues. And this relates to introducing innovative technology in operational models. COVID-19 has highlighted the role of technology that can play in providing goods and services, and especially in the lockdown. I think the industries and sectors which are basically booming relates to those which are technology-based. So in the era of lockdowns and social distancing, we really need to have, in terms of the future, try to incorporate the technology into operational business models. In finance, this would mean going into fintech, and this using technology and fintech will help financial inclusion because the traditional lending models are a barrier for accessing finance to the micro and small enterprises. And Islamic finance can come up with fintech-based solutions to help promote the recovery and improve lives of people in the post-COVID area. The third area which needs to be looked into is the markets. Again, the COVID pandemic has highlighted the structural changes that will take place in the economy, with certain sectors will be actually losing jobs and importance, and there is a worry that some of the jobs which are lost in this pandemic will never come back. And on the other hand, there are other sectors which will gain importance. In particular, sectors that become important will be, for example, the e-commerce, the health sector, and also the green economy. So moving forward, Islamic banks would need to prioritize these sectors and contribute to the economic transformation, to strengthen the social fabric, and help contribute positively to climate and environment. Finally, the fourth element is to look at the products. One of the key weaknesses of the conventional financial sector is its dependence on excessive debt. Responses to the COVID-19 in most countries have been to provide more credit to sustain the operations of firms. While this will solve the short-term problems of sustainability of these firms, excessive debt is likely to increase the fragility in the longer term. One way in which Islamic banks can resolve the liquidity problems of existing businesses during COVID-19 is to provide equity-type products that can potentially sustain operations during the pandemic and enhance stability in the future. Furthermore, as was mentioned by quite a few speakers, innovative models of blended finance that combines for-profit and philanthropic finance, which includes zakah and waqf, can also be used to help the poorer sections of the population and achieve social goals. After the global financial crisis of 2008, the unique features of Islamic finance were highlighted as possible remedies to the problems of conventional finance that were responsible for the crisis. But instead of providing innovative solutions, Islamic financial sector ended up imitating the same conventional products and models that caused the crisis. The COVID-19 pandemic provides another opportunity to highlight the strengths of Islamic finance to resolve some of the critical problems facing different economies. The question is whether Islamic financial sector in general and Islamic banking in particular will rise to the occasion and come up with innovative models that can solve the financial problems facing humanity in the COVID area. Bangladesh has been actually in the forefront of developing.
Dr. Habib Ahmed, sir, you are having 1 minute more, please, sir.
Okay, I'll finish in 1 minute. So Bangladesh has actually been in the forefront of developing innovative models of social enterprises globally. For example, in Islamic banking, the RDS program of Islamic Bank Bangladesh is unique and a good example for other Islamic banks. I hope that the discussions in this international seminar will lead to providing workable models that Islamic banks in Bangladesh can implement, which can serve as examples for the rest of the world. With this hope, I thank the organizers again for organizing this timely event. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Thank you very much, Dr. Habib Ahmed, sir, chief guest of the seminar. Thank you for your nice, valuable speech. Dear guests, we are expressing our sorrow once again for breaking the serials of discussions for some technical and other issues. Dear guests and viewers, thank you for being with us. And you're watching online international seminar on the COVID-19 impact on Islamic banks in Bangladesh, challenge and the way forward, arranged by Post and JoraShako. Now we are at the last step. We are going to our honorable president of the seminar, Dr. Abu Omar Farooq Ahmed, sir. Sir, you are requested to deliver your speech and to announce the ending and conclude the whole seminar. Sir, you are requested to deliver your speech, please, sir.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. أما بعد, distinguished keynote speaker Professor Kabir Hassan, Honorable Chief Guest, Professor Habib Ahmad, respected special guest or inaugurator, Professor Ataur Rahman, dearest discussants, participants, and the audience. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I think what I'm going to say have already been discussed by the honorable discussants and the chief guest and the main keynote speaker. So I'm not going to repeat them, but if the reference comes, then I will mention, inshallah. So no one could have predicted the unprecedented turmoil caused by COVID-19 pandemic, which has interrupted economies and environments across the globe. And while it would be easy to point fingers at consumer-facing companies caught unawares, what is important now is rebuilding the global trade network by putting into practice the harsh lessons the entire world is forcibly learning now. As the global development community responds to the COVID-19 pandemic, a diverse and inclusive set of stakeholders must be engaged to address the enormous challenges. While the crisis has created immense human suffering, it has also sparked worldwide action from institutions and people eager to help. To combat the outbreak of COVID-19 that has severely impacted the world's economy, the Islamic banks and Islamic financial institutions are seemingly considering a more lenient approach concerning their potential headcount reduction unless the crisis deepens further. Islamic finance complies, as our honorable discussion, Professor Monzur-E-Elahi referred to that, with the maqasid of Sharia, or the key objectives of four noble Sharia. These objectives broadly revolve around the protection of faith, life, intellect, wealth, and dignity. In response, the United Nations Secretary General has emphasized on tackling the health emergency, focusing on social impact in the response and recovery, and helping countries recover more sustainably for the long term. The immediate priorities identified in the response of United Nations include health system support, inclusive and integrated crisis management and response. Islamic finance in the globe in general and in Bangladesh in particular can be part of the COVID-19 response through a range of financing instruments well suited for each stage. Firstly, Islamic banks can offer emergency support in the short term. In this regard, Zakah can be an important component of national and NGO emergency support programs. Donors typically require that Zakah be dispersed within 1 year of being given. This focus on immediate benefit is well suited for crisis response. Zakah donors support both the poor and the economically insecure, an area of increased need in the pandemic. Zakah donors often give cash transfers, which can be especially important in emergencies. Individual sadaqah or philanthropic charity is a broad tool that can be used to support healthcare, food, and other immediate needs. Corporate charity is part of corporate social responsibility, as has been referred to our another respected discussant, Dr. Shafiqur Rahman, can also be a way for businesses to contribute not only money, but also goods and expertise. The United Nations Partnership Basnas in Indonesia's National Zakah Collection Agency has been in place since 2017. Islamic banks can take this collaboration as an example of how Zakah stakeholders can systematically link their projects with the sustainable development goals. including in response to crisis. United Nations, another partnership with the World Dhaka Forum, launched in 2019, lays the groundwork for members to work with United Nations on sustainable development goals aligned worldwide. Secondly, Islamic banks can make response and recovery in the medium run. The financing of equipment, vehicles, and other sources of livelihood and trade finance are key mechanisms by which Islamic banks can support recovery. Aligning their financing activities with the Sustainable Development Goals is a significant opportunity for Islamic banks. In 2018, the Al Baraka Banking Group launched a collaboration with United Nations Development Program that seeks to align over $600 million of its financing portfolio with the Sustainable Development Goals in the Middle East, Asia, Africa, and Europe. The coronavirus pandemic makes such initiatives all the more urgent. Thirdly, Islamic banks can make long-term recovery and resilience. Sustainable Development Goals aligned sukuk can be an important source of long-term capital for governments and companies engaged in the COVID response and recovery. United Nations support of the government of Indonesia's Green Sukuk, including a $1.25 billion issuance in 2018, is a prime example of how issuers can partner with United Nations to identify, track, and report on their sustainable development goals impact. They provide a decade of funding for Indonesia's National Sustainable Development Goals Plan. Work endowments can also, in many contexts, be important contributors to long-term resilience. Financial or non-financial assets, such as land or buildings, are permanently dedicated to social purposes. This can be an important way for stakeholders to contribute to social infrastructure that serves the Sustainable Development Goals. This is a time for new ways to help tackle the devastation of COVID-19 and invest in sustainable development. Islamic finance has the tools for each stage of the response. Last but not the least, it is expected that Islamic banks can help the respective countries navigate the current situation through taking some preventive measures, such as using interest-free instruments and augmenting their corporate social responsibility activities. These can be reflected in what I have already mentioned at the outset. Besides, Islamic banks can also grant Qard Hasan or benevolent loans for welfare purposes or to bridge short-term funding requirements where the borrowers are required to repay only the principal. As corporations and individuals grapple with the impact of COVID-19 on their revenue, Qard Hasan could provide breathing space until the environment stabilizes. Islamic banks can also render their help through cash waqf in the current circumstances by providing affordable housing solutions or access to health care and education for people that might have lost a portion of their income, including their jobs. These are a few suggestions as food for thought for Islamic banks in Bangladesh, given the ongoing corona situation that the industry is now facing. Finally, I extend my heartfelt thanks to organizers and sponsors to organize such an important and very timely event and to provide the audience with the opportunity of joining it in the webinar from all parts of the world. I hope this international seminar will thoroughly examine all the related issues and provide practical solutions for the active considerations. and implementation by the Islamic banks in Bangladesh. I believe this would also help their peers in the rest of the world to find proper guidelines on the issue. I earnestly pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that this seminar will achieve the success in reaching its loftiest goals. With that, I declare the ending of this international seminar. وصلى الله تعالى على خير خلقه محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين.